Hello and welcome to the first ever live podcast by the Cardboard Box Item. Thanks everybody for joining us and people who might be listening in later. And forgive us any technical difficulties because we literally do not know what we're doing most of the time, and especially not now, if I'm being honest.
When we can't edit it afterwards.
Oh God, like,
scary.
Yeah. So my name is Michael. In the room opposite me, I can see a backwards baseball cap on, of all things.
Got it in New York, by the way.
Sean, he mentioned it 10 times. It says New York on the baseball cap as well. Sean Moher's in the room there, and joining us, dialing in from Japan, is Stephen Hill.
And I'm wearing a backwards kimono, but for unrelated reasons.
Yeah, it also says New York on it for some reason.
And I got it in France.
Thanks for joining us, guys. So this is our end of year podcast. We do one of these every year, and we count down our top 5 favorite games that we played this year. So that's the important part. They might not have necessarily come out this year, but we played them this year is the most important.
If internet archaeologists ever came back to look at this, so what games came out in 2023? Cave Story, Space Invaders, Shadows of the Damned. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it's fucked. But it's the way we like to do things, so that's why we stick with it. So we'll be counting down from 5 to 2. We'll each take it in turn, and then we'll give our game of the year, and we'll also mention our worst game of the year. I'm really interested to hear what some of those are. I think I'm a bit more excited to hear what people's worst game of the year was. It was actually pretty tricky for me to decide this year, I have to say.
Yeah,
same.
No,
Actually,
the
worst
worst game.
Bad games.
Yeah, I've played a lot of games, but I don't know, whenever I play a game that I'm just not into, I guess I'll stop playing it pretty much straight away.
Same,
they end up being forgettable.
That's obvious every time we do a podcast, man.
Fuck off. Here we go.
But it's hard to go by an hour. It's a lot of a time investment to do something you don't like, true. But sometimes you'll stick with it. Anyway, so I'm going to throw it to Stephen Hill first of all, and he's going to give us his 5th best, 4th best, 3rd best, and 2nd best games of the year.
Yeah, but in segments, not all at the same time.
Yeah, say the name of them all at the same time.
It'd just be like, blah. It's okay, that was all 4. Okay, so we'll get started then. My first game, the 5th best game of this year, this is one that I'm sure Sean will enjoy.
Oh.
It was the Dead Space remake.
Oh, sick.
Cool.
Okay, please just pause there while we get the footage on screen. This part might be a bit clunky because, I'm just trying to load videos in.
Sean, don't show them behind the curtain, okay? They think this is all seamless.
Ignore what you see right now. That's not correct. So we just go here, and it's number 5. Is that right? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, wow. Now we've got an image within an image of our our background. Oh, this is interesting.
This is sort of reflecting the Lynchian themes of the Dead Space remake. What are we really looking at? What is reality and what is psychosis?
Exactly. Isaac Clarke goes into a bit of a wormhole into his own psychosis, and that's why we see things the way they are.
Cool. So sorry, bad news on this one, Steve. It looks like 3 of your videos are corrupted and I can't play them. Great start.
Fantastic.
It looks like number 1, 3, and 5. They're not giving me thumbnails on them, so I think there's something wrong.
That's okay.
Which is weird.
Can everyone just imagine some Dead Space remake footage playing right now?
Do you know what, Steve? If you want to resend me that link, and in the meantime, I'll re-download and see if that fixes. In the meantime, you can just chat about Dead Space.
Oh, thanks for permission there, Sean. That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to try and talk about this. And
I'm trying to technically, fucking get the thing working.
Here, Steve. Okay, Dead Space remake. The thing I don't like, I played it for, I'd say.
Actually, yeah, we've all played and completed it, haven't we?
Well, I've played 15 minutes of it, so unless I was speed running the shit out of it. The thing I didn't like was the jump scares. I just can't deal with jump scares.
That's fair. And the thing is, I because I played the original, I was kind of like, I didn't find it that scary. Like, this is why it wasn't much higher on my list. I felt like the game itself was a bit like, oh no, I know what's coming, blah 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 blah. But you felt like it was like really scary, was it?
Yeah, well, I just played the beginning, and it's like it's very tense. I have to say, like it does its opening very well. Getting to is it the Ishimura?
Yeah.
And slowly going through, you're with your squad and you feel somewhat safe, and then they get separated / annihilated, and you're by yourself and you're just wandering around, and the enemies like can come out of anywhere. That's the scariest part for me. It's the classic like alien thing where it can come out of a vent, or it can come out of like behind you even.
But I feel like that happens so much though that you grow used to it and you expect it then. Like every time you turn a corner and it's like...
Sean, what you're describing is Stockholm Syndrome, okay? I don't want to get that for a game.
But you can expect, but like it makes it like less scary after a while, I guess, because you're just like, oh yeah, I know that someone's going to jump out of that vent probably.
Why did you like it though, Steve?
Well, so basically the thing is with the game, I love the original Dead Space. That's one of my favorite survival horror games ever. I know we disagree a little bit on which is better, the first or the second one. I always like the first one just because it feels really isolated, whereas the second one, it's a bit actiony and busy. But yeah, the remake basically doesn't do anything wrong. There's no like missteps or anything. It's just, God, how would you describe it? It's like the only issue that I had with the entire game, and this is extremely, extremely subjective, is there's no loading times. And I know that sounds like it's a good thing, but here's the thing, right? When there's loading times, the game feels bigger. And I always felt that the Ishimura felt massive when it took you a while to get from one tram station to the next. Whereas in this game, because there's no loading times at all, they just like kind of, brief animation showing you getting from one to the next. So it felt much, much smaller. And that was the only real issue I had with it. Everything else, pretty much perfect, I have to say.
Yeah, that's interesting because that comes up with like remakes and remastered versions of games. Like sometime, I can't remember what game it was, but it might have been, I played Demon Souls not too long ago, the remake. And it's like almost instantaneous you getting back into the game after you die. Like obviously you have to go back to a bonfire, but there isn't the time penalty that you would have had with the original where you have to wait through a loading screen. So in that way, deaths don't feel quite as bad in some ways.
By the way, Sean, I've tried to, like, I'm looking at the original file I have here and it's not letting me open it either. Sorry, I should have checked to see.
No, don't worry. I'm trying to see, can I find like a different video, but all the ones I can find I can't download for some reason.
Well, you know what? Let's move on to game number 4 then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4. Yeah, because we know, well, I hope that one works. But yeah.
I think it's just 3 out of 3. That's not too bad, right? Now this one's a weird one. And I'm glad that you have footage of this one because this is the one game I know people will have no idea what it is. The next game on my list, number 4, is called Moon RPG Remix Adventure.
That's the worst name for a game I've ever heard in my life, but it sounds intriguing.
It is.
Cool, yeah,
so basically, if you're in any way interested in JRPGs, this game will at the very least be interesting. It was kind of marketed as an anti-RPG.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like Earthbound in a way. It's kind of got a very similar vibe. How it works is, right, you start the game as a boy playing an RPG. And you're playing like the hero, going around, slaying monsters, learning spells, helping villagers, and killing a dragon at the end with a big magic spell. But then just as that happens, like a kind of voice box pop up and says, stop playing your video games and come over here and do your homework or whatever, blah, 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 blah. What eventually happens then is you get sucked into the game. And, common knowledge, you'd expect, okay, at this point, you're going to become the hero or you're going to like walk in the hero's shoes and do the job. No, instead what you're doing is you're cleaning up after the hero because the hero is basically going in people's houses, taking all their shit from their houses and you're going in and saying like, listen, they're still loving the world. You got to just give him a break, blah, blah, blah. And all the monsters he's slaying, oh God, how do I explain this? Basically, there is an alien zoological survey company or something. They're coming to Earth and they're saying, hey, so all these monsters have been killed, but we want you to restore their souls to their bodies so that we can bring them to our safe haven on the moon. That's legitimately part of the plot. You have to like save animals by putting their souls back into their bodies.
Okay.
This is the weirdest thing. What's it on?
I know.
What's it on, Steve? So
I think this was originally a Super Nintendo game or maybe a PlayStation game, but they re-released it on modern consoles.
Okay.
It's such an odd game. It's really hard to categorize. There's no combat. It's largely puzzles and adventure, and it's so weird that I couldn't help. I was thinking about it constantly. It's such an odd game. And the greatest two things I absolutely love about it, one of them is the characters are really, really, really interesting. Like they're not deep per se, but memorable. And as well as that, the music is phenomenal. The music is so good in this game.
Yeah. Well, like a JRPG lives or dies on its music most of the time, especially ones from this era as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great because there's this guy who's like a hipster you find in a cave, and he's just like jamming on his guitar and he sells records. And you can literally buy every record he has. And then you've got this like CD player thing that like you can turn on at any point. So you can choose what tracks you play. Man, the tracks are so good. They're just absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it.
It's looking at the footage now, I don't think I could describe with any sort of eloquence what this game is looking at, because it just went from like monsters in a field, and then a UFO picked up one, and then he went into a house that looks modern and normal, and I think he's gone to sleep now. Like, I've got no frame of reference for this whatsoever.
It's really weird. It's also got like an interesting time management system. So you can see you've got like a certain amount of stamina. And if you run out of stamina, basically you pass out. And if you pass out, you die. That's game over. And you lose all your progress, which is really annoying at the start of the game. But once you collect enough love, which is something that happens, like you get love by bringing souls back to animals or helping people out with their stupid little tasks. And every time you get love, you get more stamina. So eventually it becomes like basically a non-issue, but you have to go to sleep every now and then to, save your game and to recharge your love.
God, like there was a certain era where guys were just throwing random shit at the wall and being like, yeah, I'm making a game and sleep is a mechanic in it. Like stuff like that is, I sort of admire that, and I miss that doesn't happen more in games. Like just it's really weird, because this looks like it has a bit of a budget behind it. Like the backgrounds look pretty detailed and probably good for the time. So the fact that like there was resources put into some madman's vision of what a game should be is like pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I just think it's like it's a game that I've been thinking about constantly, and even though I'd say Dead Space is a better put together game, this one just like it's just really, really interesting. Like it sticks out in memory, so I'll give it props for that.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that, because that sort of comes up with my top list as well, as in there's certain games that are mechanically better games, but vibes are really important as well. And sometimes
vibes
are important. Yeah. Okay, sick. Do you want to throw us to number 3?
Okay, and apologies to everyone watching that we don't have footage of this one.
I'll try
imagine.
it, but
yeah, it probably won't work. So my third game, this one's might surprise you, surprise me anyway, was Quake 2.
Oh, cool.
Oh, shit. Okay, cool. I recently played Quake 1 through and thought it was pretty good. But yeah, Quake 2, I bounced off a bit. But why did you like it?
That's fair. Man, Quake 2 it's kind of the opposite of Moon completely, because whereas Moon was just like, as you said, vibes, it's all about vibes and all that. Quake 2 is just a pure gameplay experience, and it's so good. I just think the combat in that game is perfectly balanced. Every enemy is designed to encourage you to use a certain gun or a certain tactic. Every gun feels amazing to play. In particular, the version that I'm talking about was the one that was re-released, I think about 2 years ago. The Quake re-release,
remaster kind of thing. Yeah,
yeah, and it's sorry, I've dropped out a little bit, I think, but yeah, that. Oh, okay. So with that version, you get so much content, like a ridiculous amount of content. You've got the main game, you've got like 3 DLC campaigns. You've also got the N64 version of Quake 2, which is weirdly completely different from the original version of the game. It's just massive, huge game. And just, I loved it. I platinumed the entire game. I loved it that much.
Nice. Wow. That must have been difficult.
Have you played it, actually?
Yeah, I've played through, I'd say like 2 hours of it. Maybe something like that, maybe less. Yeah,
I haven't played the second. I played a bit of the first remastered, but haven't finished.
Oh, the RTX one.
No, like Quake 1 remastered. Sorry, is that like the re-release that came out a while ago? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The thing I just missed from Quake 1 was, again, we're talking about, I'm probably going to use the term like a million times, the vibes. Because Quake 1 had that like weird gothic thing going on mixed with the cyber, not steampunky sort of vibe to it. And I love the image of like going through these medieval looking castles and they had like the purple sky texture over it. Like it reminds me a bit of, what's that modern one that I love? The modern boomer shooter, Dusk. Dusk it was also very influenced by that. It's an excellent game. But it did seem like Quake 2 was more streamlined in a lot of ways, and like the guns, like the point you make, the guns all have uses, whereas there were certain guns that I only ever used as a last resort in Quake 1. So like it was a bit more thrown together than like Quake 2 seems like a more holistically designed sort of thing where like they knew what they wanted to do and they made it, rather than, oh, you do this level and then you do this level sort of thing that probably happened in Quake 1.
Yeah, you're not wrong, actually. Like, in particular with Quake is, as you said, like, it's got great vibes. The atmosphere in it is amazing. Quake 2 lacks that to a certain extent. I feel like it's not as atmospheric, but the gameplay is just done so well. In particular, that game, the MVP of that game is the grenade launcher, because that is such a deep mechanic in the game. Because you probably, as you know, with a lot of games, the grenade launcher, if you hit yourself with a grenade, you take damage. But grenades are fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're almost always going to have ammunition for the grenade launcher, but it's a dangerous gun to use. You know, you could play through that entire game with just the grenade launcher and it would change the entire game. So I love that about it. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, no, it's a bit a hallmark game. Like you could see at that time how modern first-person shooters were influenced by like the level design and all in it, and just the progression. And it seems like, oh, this is a really important landmark game in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just one last thing to say, like, you are right, it feels so super modern. Like, I know it is technically a remaster, but it just feels incredibly modern. It feels like it would slot in with like a lot of modern shooters in the current day. So recommend to anyone watching, like, give Quake 2 a go if you haven't. It's an excellent game.
Did you ever play the originals, Steve?
Like not the remasters, the original games?
Yeah.
I played the original Quake 1. I've never played the original Quake 2.
Okay, but I was just wondering, like, how did you feel like the remaster, I guess? Did it like compared to the original, like Quake 1, for example, did it feel different in any way, or was it just kind of upgraded graphics and stuff, or like were the controls a bit different than that?
It was mostly just smoother in every way. Like the graphics were smoother, like the character moved in a more like less glitchy kind of way. Like he just moved smoother. Like everything just works smoother is the main thing I'd say about it.
Cool.
And you get like the weapon wheel. That's a new thing, I guess, where you can select weapons using the radio dial thing. Like that's one thing I do hate about old first-person shooters is cycling through weapons to find one. But you sort of you deal with it when you have to. Sick. True. So what's number 2?
And number 2, this is going to be an interesting one for you, Michael. I probably don't need to talk about it too much. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Okay. Nice.
So we don't need to talk about this too much because slight spoilers ahead. Myself and Michael actually have a new podcast coming up about this game.
Oh, not one podcast, 4 podcasts. So I don't know the full length, but I think it's going to be something like 6 or 7 hours long when you put it all together. So yeah,
it's sizable. Well, and to be fair, that kind of reflects the game because the game is bloody massive. Like I think I was over 100 hours at the end. How about you, Michael?
80 something hours. Yeah, it's definitely the longest I've played a game for a couple of years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I won't go into too much about it because most people can probably like infer like how I feel about it. But like the game was incredible. It was epic. It would did a lot of justice to the original. I had some issues with it, which is why it's not in the top spot. Certain areas, certain characters, they made decisions with them, and I was like, that's not how I would have done it. But you can't argue with the quality and the quantity within the game. You know, it dominated like the first half of 2024 for me.
Just for people who may not be familiar, like myself, but so this is a remake, but it's part 2 of the game, isn't it? So they split the remake of Final Fantasy VII across 3 games.
Yes,
is that right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, okay.
So basically, like the original game was so like obviously because the graphics weren't as impressive as they are now, they could put a fairly lengthy adventure into like a small amount of space. But now to have something that equals that length in terms of the narrative, like it needs to be much, much bigger. So this is the second half, and it's considerably bigger than the first half. The first half kind of feels like a nice comparison would almost be Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain. It's like that level of scaling up. Like it's huge in comparison to the original remake.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to go back and once the third one is out, is like not playing back to back because that would be pretty insane. But if there was some like streamlined way to do that, if they released like the best of 1, 2, and 3 put together into one game. Because it does feel fairly different. Like we even mentioned on the podcast, the combat feels different. Like it feels more less grounded than remakes combat did and stuff like that. But
it's crazy to look at this because like I'm doing that first playthrough of the original, and like this looks like a completely different game.
Yeah,
like I mean, obviously they're worlds apart in their graphical style and stuff like that, but it seems you get way more in this in the remake.
They take some big swings with certain things, but they're also weirdly faithful to a lot of things as well. It's a very unusual balancing act that they're trying to do, and sometimes they get it wrong and sometimes they nail it. Right. So it's don't worry guys, we have hours and hours of podcast on that very subject coming up anyway.
Yeah.
Cool.
So again, we don't need to go into too much more about it. It's very, very fun game. Combat's great. There's a lot of fan service in there. Very, very good value for money because you will be playing fucking mini games for hours in that game. A
lot of mini games.
And it's enjoyable to a certain extent.
Nice.
So yeah, those are my initial 4 games. And now I will pass it on to Sean.
Yeah, cool. Just before we move on, Steve, if you can, because your number 1 game footage is
I'm working on it now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. If you can, try send me across a new video.
We'll do it live.
Yeah, this is what happens, folks. Cool. Okay, so starting off with my number 5, it is Prey from 2017.
So is it a Bethesda game?
Yes, Arcane. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Who I think it might be from the branch of Arcane that got shut down actually as well.
I think so.
That was this year too. But let me just quickly grab the footage for this.
I love that Final Fantasy is still playing, and we just saw a mini game where you become a frog and do a Fall Guys mini game during it. That's the sort of game Final Fantasy is. Anyway,
cool. That should be cool. That's playing. So I think it was you, Steve, possibly that was talking about this a lot. And I had tried it a few years ago, and I can't remember the name of them now, but you know I need to find out the name. This is great research as usual. The enemies in it, what are they called, Steve, if you can remind me?
Splooge.
Mimics?
The mimics, yeah, that was it, yeah. Like they...
no one laughed at my splooge joke. It's okay, though. It's fine.
But, so yeah, I guess like the for people who don't know, the main enemy in the game it's this kind of like alien life form that can mimic objects. So it can turn into like a cup or a chair or anything like that. And sometimes it won't even reveal itself, but usually if you get too close, especially if you attack it, it will like change back into its alien form, which looks really like some kind of spider thing. And I remember,
not for me.
Yeah. I know you can see from the footage, but. So when I first played it, I was like, what the fuck? This chair just turned into this giant thing. So that kind of freaked me out, and I didn't really know what was going on, didn't gel with it. But yeah, since you talked about it and talked of it so highly, Steve, I went back earlier this year and gave it like a proper run through, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. Like the story as well was incredible. It's like a kind of like an immersive sim, I guess, when you get into it. Like you're basically set on a space station, and it's been overrun by this like alien life form, and you have complete freedom to go around the majority of the station anyway. Like some places are locked off to you earlier in the game, to like do certain tasks and stuff to figure out what's going on and try and save the space station.
Astrobot.
Yeah. But it's really cool. Like you get like lots of abilities and stuff as well, a little bit like akin to BioShock in ways.
It has that vibe. It seems BioShocky.
It's got that kind of vibe. The story as well took some twists and turns. The end of the story, without spoiling it, was a little bit disappointing. But I think there's some kind of discourse about that online. But it was still like overall really good game. I haven't played the DLC yet, but I do have it.
I've heard that's amazing.
That's meant to be really good. Moon Crash.
DLC, I've heard people say that's like incredible.
Yeah.
But would you, like, I've always been intrigued by it, but I've been put off by the survival horror sort of side of it.
So you can see on the screen now what I'm talking about, those mimics. Yeah, like, honestly, at the start I was a little freaked out by that, but then the more I played it, and it was kind of like I was saying earlier about with Dead Space, you just come to expect it. And you can also... there's certain tells that you can see if like, oh, that object, it's pretty cool the way they do it. Like you can tell if an object is out of place after a while. Once you walk into a room, you'll be like, it might be a room you've already been in, and you'll notice that wasn't there. Or it might be an object that shouldn't really be in that room. Like maybe it's a laboratory and there's like a chair in there that doesn't fit. And you're like, I know that's a mimic. And,
okay, that's sick.
And you shoot it, and then it turns into it. And it's actually like kind of like rewarding when you get it right when you shoot it, and it turns into a mimic, but or turns like back into its original form. But yeah, really cool game. Really enjoyed it unexpectedly. But yeah. So Steve, when did you play it? When it came out? Cool. I thought we had lost Steve there, actually. He was a bit too quiet in the background.
Yeah, there was a bit too much. It wouldn't be like him, says you.
Yeah. Normally you'd hear some typing or something going on, but
farting.
Let me just quickly double check to see if he's still on the line.
Okay. While Sean's sorting that out, I'll tell you all a little story.
I think we have.
Oh, there we are now.
Oh, thank God I didn't have a story to tell there at all. I was just going to improvise something.
What did I miss? Sorry about that for everyone who my internet is very bad here, unfortunately. What did I miss?
That's okay. No, I don't know if you could hear us all that time, Steve, but I kind of just wrapped up talking about Prey.
And you also talked a lot of shit about Steve in it.
But no, I am delighted actually that, because Prey was one of my top 5 games of the year. I think it was last year as well, or maybe the year before. Excellent game. Like, it's really, really mind-blowingly good and really underrated. I feel like nobody talks about it at all.
Yeah, completely. Like, it got a little bit of buzz maybe when it released, but then it kind of just became a cult.
I don't think it sold that well, to be honest.
No. Yeah, unfortunately. But it's probably like one of, to be fair, I haven't played the Dishonored games, and they're by Arcane as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're by the same Arcane studio.
I think it might be a different studio, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of their highest rated games anyway, even though it's like got a, kind of a cult following.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I would recommend you try it out, Michael. Yeah,
Okay,
really
yeah,
cool.
maybe I will. Yeah, you can get it really cheap now as well.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is cool. So number 4 is a game that came out this year. It's Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess.
I heard about this. Yeah,
I haven't at all. Okay,
so
cool.
Yeah, this is probably like the most surprising one on my list, I'd say. But let me just get the footage up here.
I wouldn't have put this down as your kind of jam at all, man, to be honest, but cool that it is.
Yeah. So this was shown off, I think, at either Summer Game Fest or the Game Awards last year. And we were watching it together, Michael. And I remember thinking like, oh, this looks really cool. And it's a Capcom game and stuff. It's in the RE engine as well. So the same engine they use for the Resident Evil games, but it's a completely different style. Yeah, and I saw it and I thought like, oh, this looks really cool. And it was on Game Pass and I had it in my list for like my backlog for ages. But I had like this feeling of, oh yeah, I should try that, but I feel like I'm not going to like it. I think, it just looks cool, but it won't be my kind of game. But tried it out and I got like sucked into it. It was amazing. So basically the story, well, there's not really a whole lot of story for it. There's no dialogue in it at all.
Cool. Very cool. Okay.
But the premise of it is it's like set in, I guess, like kind of ancient Japan, and there's this mountain with a load of villages on it, and it's been like taken over by, I guess, like evil spirits and things like that. They call it defilement in the game. And so this goddess is trying to cleanse the mountain of the defilement, but she can't touch the defilement or something. It'll like stop her of her power. So she summons this guardian who you play as called So. And so you go through each village, you like kind of cleanse certain like bits of defilement. The main thing is there's a day-night cycle in the game. So during the day, there's no enemies. You have to go around and build defenses and stuff. So there's a bit of tower defense in the game as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is really interesting. You have to rescue villagers that have been trapped by defilement. And then you can assign roles to them. So they can be like an archer or they can be like a swordman, things like that. And so
is there a time limit on?
There is a time limit on the daytime, yeah. So I'm not sure exactly how much it is. You can see in the bottom left corner
that's the sun progressing over, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So once it reaches the other side of the mountain, it turns to night. And at night, there's these torii gates, which is, I think, like, Steve, you probably have a better knowledge on what a torii gate is, like a Japanese.
Oh, yeah. It's basically, remember the thing that you bowed wrongly under in Japan?
Apparently, I insulted everybody at that temple in Japan when I was there.
Oh, no way.
You dabbed. I dabbed.
But yeah, so they open up at night, and these like creatures come through, and you have to defend the town, I guess, but mainly you have to defend the goddess from them. So once you clear those out, once daytime hits, you can move you can move her forward closer to the gate, because you have to like set out a path for her to get to the gate. And then once she reaches the gate, she will cleanse the gate of defilement, so no more creatures can come through, and then that's the end of the level, basically. And you go on to the next one. There's certain levels have boss battles at the end of them, and one thing I have to say about it is the creature design and everything is incredible in the game. Like the amount of different types of enemies and how they attack you and stuff. Like there's one level where it's pitch black, it's in a cave, and you have to turn on these lamps to light the way. And there's one specific enemy that all it does is turn off lamps. Oh, and it's like, it's so annoying as well. So like when that enemy comes through the gate, it's like, I need to get rid of him first, you know. And the bosses as well, they were all like really unique. The one thing I did find is that, like, unfortunately, I kind of just ended up like returning to the same methods to kill each boss.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But I will say, like I was thinking about that earlier as well, the game does give you a lot of different ways that you can fight the enemies. Like at a certain point during the game, you unlock the ability to upgrade So's abilities, your character's abilities, and you can choose different fighting styles and things like that, which is pretty cool. So I think I just got... I fell into a pattern that worked for me, and I probably just stuck with that for the game. But there, you can change it up and find different things that work for different enemies and stuff. And also, yeah, you can upgrade the villagers' roles. So, like I was saying, archer, swordsman, things like that. You can upgrade their abilities too, to like for better health, more damage and stuff.
That's such a unique sort of mechanical template for the game. Like it seems really interesting. Looking at footage, it seems so busy.
It can get busy when at night when all the enemies are here or all the enemies are on screen and stuff. But it's a really cool mix of like tower defense, but then like at night when you still have to like do a little bit of strategy management, but you can also like fight yourself. So like there's a lot of hack and slash gameplay, I guess, and stuff, which is really fun. And it's a pretty long game as well. Like I'm not sure how long it took me to complete it, but there was a load of different villages you need to get through. Oh, and that's the cool thing. At the end of the game, a little bit of a spoiler, but at the end of the game, once you've like cleansed the last town, you have to go back up to the top of the mountain to complete the game. But you have to go through like a load of Torii gates, and you fight each of the bosses that you fought before, one after the other.
Boss rush. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's really cool. Don't know what's going on there.
How difficult is it, man?
Not too bad. Like there were some like. That's the thing. The difficulty really comes down to how you strategize for the knights. Because if you like do a poor job and say like, oh, I'm just going to have all archers, then you're going to fail. You know, because they're not going to be able. Like you need to strategize in how you give roles to the villagers, what kind of defenses you set up. Like you have this carpenter that follows you around, and he can build kind of like walled defenses or traps and things to slow down the creatures. So all that kind of stuff really is where the difficulty comes in. There is like some towards the end of the game, there's some like bigger, harder creatures that like can take a good bit of damage, and they take a while to take down. So again, it's just about strategizing how to take those down and what enemies to prioritize and when, you know. But I definitely recommend it if anybody's into like, even if you're just into hack and slash gameplay, it's really fun for that. The strategy part of it and the tower defense isn't like overwhelmingly like I don't know what, like there's so much things I don't know what to do. It's like it's pretty like user friendly for newcomers, I guess.
That's a mix of genres like 3D combat and tower defense. That it's not exactly the same, but Brutal Legend tried to do 3D combat and RTS.
I loved that game. That was a great game.
I really didn't like that element.
So did I. Yeah.
I think it threw people off a lot because it didn't introduce the tower defense stuff until like halfway through the game. Or when you get to your first big battle, then it's like, oh yeah, you're going to be doing a load of RTS stuff. And it's like,
but like it was just clunky in that game. I maybe I didn't give it enough of a chance. In fairness.
I like that game because it does something I really like it when both movies and games do this, where they kind of trick you that it's a different kind of game, but they trick you in a way that's kind of like, see, you didn't think you were going to enjoy this, but actually you are. Because I have no time for RTS games at all, but like Brutal Legend lulled me into it, and I was like, I didn't realize I'm actually enjoying this, but I kind of am. So yeah, that was sick. I love Brutal Legend for that. Sorry to go off topic, but this game looks sick as well. I was already considering getting it, but yeah, I'll probably give it a go. This looks awesome.
It seems right up Steve's wheelhouse. Really.
Yeah, I'd
your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it, Steve. There's a load of like things to do with Japanese folklore in it that I guess I didn't get, but like you can see when you play it if it's all legit. I mean, it's by Capcom, so I imagine it is. But yeah, like all you can collect these. Can't remember what they're called now, but basically like these little information tablets about all the creatures in the game and stuff. And
cool.
it'll give you like a little 3D model of the creature when you view it, and then you can flip it and it'll show you like information on the folklore behind it on the back. So yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot of like in-depth folklore stuff there if you want that, but it's also like not front and center. You can just enjoy the gameplay.
Sick. Cool. What's your number 3?
Yeah.
Cool. So my number 3, right, let me see here. Sorry, dead air. Number 3 is...
The best way to fill dead air is to say dead air.
yeah. Number 3 is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2.
Oh, yeah.
Or Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. So
I didn't hear as much about this when I thought it would be a bigger deal, but yeah.
I feel no, that's okay.
Okay.
So I feel like this should have been a bigger deal, but there was a weird mix of like it wasn't marketed very well.
Yes, yeah. People were surprised when it came out. Yeah.
Number one, it wasn't marketed. It was a huge game for Microsoft, a first-party game for them. And there was also like, there's been a long wait since the first game. I don't have the year to hand here now, but 2017 actually. So not that long, but 2017 was Hellblade 1: Senua's Sacrifice, and then earlier this year Hellblade 2 came out by Ninja Theory. But they had been working on it for like pretty much a full 7 years, if not more. It was using Unreal Engine 5, which I think it was one of the first like story-driven games.
Looks unbelievable.
It is by far the best looking like graphical game, best looking game I've played ever. Like the amount of work that they put into the photo geometry and the facial capture and stuff is insane. It's a very short game. Well, I say very short. It's probably, you can complete it like handily in 6 to 7 hours. So it's not crazy short, but I think that was another thing about the backlash. Like when the game came out and people were like, "What the hell?" It's only like people were completing it in 5 hours because they were like.
But the first one was pretty short as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the first one was only about 8 hours. The thing, like, it's a very linear game. They put so much work into making sure that like every step you took and every second of the game looked and felt really good, and that's why it's so like almost on rails, the game. But it's an amazing like narrative, and like it's an amazing narrative experience, and there is some combat in it. It's not like a combat heavy game. It's kind of, you could almost say it's a walking simulator in some ways. But the combat is done really well, and like the way again they did motion capture and that for the combat like really shines through. It looks amazing. They only do, I think there was a little bit of a downgrade in some ways in the combat from the first game. Like in the first game,
I heard that because I remember I loved the first game. Some people were like, "Oh, it's kind of same." I thought it was really excellent.
Yeah,
but some people were saying that it wasn't quite as good this time around.
I think so. Basically, fights are now always just one-on-one. There may be other enemies in the area, but you're always just one-on-one. Whereas in the first game, I feel like it would still lock you to one, but you could like be fighting multiple at a time. But I think that was down to probably the motion capture, because they wanted to just get this really good like rhythm between the two actors fighting. Also, there was, for some weird reason, in the first game you were able to run and like jump kick enemies to like knock them back, and they took that out of this one, which was a bit annoying. And I remember like that was one of the first things I tried to do in combat to like get some distance, and I was like, oh, what the hell, they took that out. But it's still incredible. It's on Game Pass as well, so anybody can try it out if you have that. The story is really good. I think like it's a weird one because I feel like they didn't need to make a sequel, but it's also like really like it fits like perfectly. Like it's really good.
Okay.
I'm guessing like neither of you have tried it or anything. But...
No, I'm. It's like, this is really bad to say, it's probably one I'd watch a playthrough of.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it is like a movie almost as well. It's like you could watch it and enjoy it. The cutscenes are like gorgeous as well. That's one thing, is like when the game goes from a cutscene back to gameplay, it's like seamless, you know, because the graphics are just so good in the actual game as well. Things like rocks and stuff like on the shore like just look incredible. It's amazing. But really good. Loved that earlier this year. Cool. I'll move on to my number 2, which might be another surprising one, actually. So my number 2 is Dredge. Which I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Judge Dredge.
Yeah. Let me just get the footage for that.
Most of this tracks. Kamikura was the only, or Path of the Goddess one, whatever that was called. That was the only surprising one there so far. All the rest are like, yeah, these are Sean games.
Okay.
There's been a lack of guns so far.
Yes, I'm glad you pointed that out. I wanted to say that. Yeah, cool. So Dredge is a on the face of it, it's a fishing game basically. But it's also a little bit of a survival horror element to it, which is like a bit weird.
There we go. That's why.
Yeah. So yeah, in Dredge, you play a fisherman that arrives at kind of like a remote island that's inhabited. Basically, there's like a village there and stuff. And your goal is to just fish pretty much, but you get side quests and missions from people in the town who like want, like, basically I can't remember at the start of the game now, but I think you arrive there, you need repairs in your boat and stuff, but to make money you need to fish to get the money to repair the boat, things like that. But along the way then you get quests from people in the town and things like that. There's a day-night cycle in this game as well. Let me just skip ahead actually in this footage because pause menu is going crazy there. So yeah, there's like inventory management and things like that. You can carry different types of pots for like crab fishing and things like that.
Sick.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Different kind of rods, like and different kind of lines and stuff.
Slow down.
Even different engines to speed up the boat, different like lights as well for how well you can see at night.
All this in one game.
I know, it's actually incredible that they managed to pull this off. Like, and this is a debut from this studio as well, Black Salt Games. But yeah, so just going back to what I was saying, there's a day-night cycle. During the night is kind of where the survival horror element comes along. So there's I don't know how to explain the reasoning behind it, but there's these kind of like I guess deep sea creatures that show up at night and stuff. And they can, I think it goes off how if you have your light on, they're more likely to attack you as well. So like and if you're boosting your engine and stuff to get more speed, that'll attract enemies. And there's no combat in this, so they can just like kill you straight away.
One shot.
That's it. One shot and you're done. There's also like kind of like whirlpools and stuff that show up at night.
And why go out at night? Sorry if I missed that.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so going out at night, only certain fish can be fished at night. And also, to be honest, once you unlock the whole map, it's quite large, and I can't remember if there's fast travel. I don't think there is, or there might be later on in the game, but for the most part there's not. So you just need to travel by boat from like one island to the other, and it can be beneficial to travel at night as well, because that means you're there ready to fish and you've got the daytime then. Or you might just get stuck where you're like, I need to get to this port to like open my stash to like change out something on my ship. And I have to travel through the night.
So resource management, sort of a
that's what
part of survival horror then.
Well, there's 100% resource management. You can like the storage on your ship, you can upgrade as you go and stuff. But then there's like you get quest items that you have to carry, and that can be awkward, like choosing how much, because your storage is not only for your rods and your reels and your engines, it's also the fish that you catch. So, and the fish obviously you can sell then for upgrades and stuff, but you might be in a tricky situation where you're like, you can salvage material as well for upgrades. So I want to get this upgrade, I have to salvage a certain amount of material. I'm going to have to leave that fish I caught then because I don't have enough room. So I'll have less money. So yeah, for upgrades, you need to have salvage and you need to have the money as well to make the upgrades. But it's a really fun, it's a really relaxing game. That's the main reason I started playing it, was I just want something to like chill that I can put on, and it's not like really intense and stuff. And for the most part, like I know I was talking about the survival horror elements at night, but they're only very like quick moments. It's not like Dead Space or Prey or whatever, where you're going around like full of anxiety basically. No,
It looks really, really like soothing. Just watching the gameplay here, and I'm
style,
like,
The one thing, like the first time I played it, I was like, oh yeah, we'll give this a go. Before I knew it, 4 hours had gone by, and I was like, wow, like this just. I think that's when it comes down to like the inventory management and stuff. That stuff can take up so much more time than you actually think, you know, and that's how the time goes by. But yeah, it's a really relaxing game, and if you like kind of puzzle and fishing and stuff like that, it's really fun. But yeah, I'd recommend it if anybody's looking for kind of like a chill game to play like alongside something else. It's really good fun.
Looks sick. I'm surprised it's so high on your list. You must have thought highly of it then.
Yeah, no, like I said, I loved it, and I spent like so much time in it. I'm going for the platinum in it actually. I've got the DLC too, but I haven't jumped into that yet.
Doesn't this game has a crossover with Dave the Diver, doesn't it?
I don't know. That might be a DLC thing, possibly.
Or actually, no. So I think Dave the Diver has a crossover with this game. I think this game has a crossover with Cthulhu, I think.
Okay, I'm not.
That sort of tracks
sure.
if it's like monsters from the deep of the ocean sort of thing. Yeah.
Or maybe it was Godzilla or something like that. I can't remember exactly what.
Some crossover.
But yeah, possibly it's a DLC thing that I haven't got to yet. But yeah. So those are that was number 2. Yeah. So over to you, Michael, I guess, for your 5, 4, 3, 2.
That's the way numbers work. Yes, fantastic. So my number 5 has been mentioned already, so I won't labor too much. But it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Of course.
Oh wow,
so
number 5.
A bit lower on my list. I really like. There was times that this was number 1 on my list. To be honest, like I really went back and forth on this one. Released this year, obviously, and like I said before, I put 80 hours into it. Its highs are really high. Like the best moments of it are amazing, and there's some things they do so well. But like in my heart of hearts, I knew that it's not as good, really, as a lot of the other games that I have on this list, or I didn't enjoy them as much. There are like fundamental flaws within the game that we go into on the podcast. And like one of those things we were mentioned earlier, it's the middle part of a story. So the pacing is like fucked in the game, basically. And
it's pretty bad.
like there's a lot of other things, but at the same time, it does some amazing things and it takes some risks, which I really admire. Not only does it take risks in what it changes sometimes from the original, but also like it's a huge game, like not just in terms of scope, but like a huge budget and a very like big mainstream game that does some like really on the edge things and really things that developers nowadays making a AAA game or whatever might not take the same sort of steps with. But overall, really enjoyed it, but just like mechanically, pace-wise, tonally a lot of the time, there's just too many flaws there for me to pump it up further on the list. Like literally down to the wire, this was like number 2 on my list, but then I just had to make a call on it, unfortunately. And we'll be going into this in a multi-part podcast series very soon anyway, so I won't belabor the point, but yeah, I loved it. It's weird. Remake, the first remake was my game of the year that year it came out. What was that, like 2020, something like that?
Yeah.
Was it that long ago? Right?
Yeah, but it's yeah, I don't know.
This game is better, I would say. Like there's 1 or 2 areas that remake tops. Like I think we talked about a little bit like how the combat system is slightly worse in this just because it's a bit too busy and floaty.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I would say that this game like tops that one in almost every respect. So it's weird that maybe we just disagree on it.
Yeah, that'd be tricky for me to make a call on, actually, whether I think I'd need to let this one sit with me for a bit longer to know my full feelings on where I'd rank them, to be honest, because it does feel a lot different. And like the whole open world thing is so different as well. Like there's good elements to that and there's bad elements to that open world design. Like all the Chadley stuff can grate after a while, but then you get some other amazing stuff that you do as well. But yeah, that's Rebirth. Put a lot of time into it and loved it. So it was definitely going to make it somewhere on the list.
Sick.
My number 4 is a game that also came out this year, and it's Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Knew this would be on there.
Nice.
So this one really surprised me because when it was announced, I was like, "Oh, that's cool!" Like I've never into the Prince of Persia games. Really, don't really play a lot of Ubisoft games in general, but I love Metroidvanias. So I knew I'd probably give it a shot when it was on sale or something like that, and it really blew me away. Like I honestly think it deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as the best of the modern Metroidvanias, like Hollow Knight or Blasphemous or anything like that. It it does so many quality of life things that don't just make it like a smoother experience, but make it like interesting to explore the game. So there's this thing where you can take like a screenshot of a section of the game and it'll be saved on your map. And for a Metroidvania, that's so important because part of the difficulty is remembering where things you can't access yet are. So it really rewards you having forethought and thinking about those things. The combat is amazing. The movement and the upgrades that you can do to combat and your traversal are like buttery smooth. Like this is probably, it's a shame actually because this studio, well, the team that made this has been disbanded. The studio isn't shut down as far as I know, but the team has been like, oh, we're going to take you and put you on 5 different projects basically. So we probably won't see another game like this because it didn't sell well.
I think they pitched a sequel and got shut down on it. No,
I could definitely see there's room for more of this really, but we'll probably never see a Metroidvania with the same sort of resources put into it because it looks great and it plays so smoothly and there's so much small content and things to go back for, which sort of a Metroidvania lives or dies for. Like if it was just like a blast through straightforward thing, it wouldn't work as well. The only sort of negative points I'd give it are the art style's a little flat. I would say it's maybe a little like, this is probably a result of being made by a big company where there's a lot more voices and a lot more appealing to a mass market. But everything just seems a bit like sanitized and not too, I don't know, artistically dramatic in the same way that Blasphemous and Hollow Knight and Dead Cells are. They have like really, really strong art design and music, whereas this is all like a bit, I've seen it before, like even the footage is all like these sort of brown stone temple places you're going through. The one exception is there's a level that's basically a sea that's frozen in time and you're jumping on bits of like a broken up ship that's just after being hit by a lightning bolt. So there's bits floating in the air and you can see people like midway through a sword swing in the background and the waves are just locked in place, and that's a really striking and dramatic level, and they tie it into the level design really well because you use bits of the ship that's broken up to platform around. That looked amazing, but it's the exception. Like the rest of the game, like I'm in the ice place now and it's all icy textures on like stone castle walls, stuff like that. And the story is a bit meh as well, to be honest. It's just something to get you from A to B. But the level design, combat, the boss battles are amazing as well, like really tough. And some of the platforming is really tough as well. Like there's some challenges that were like just so fun to do. Like they do so much with the mechanics in it. But sorry, I'm just ranting on it. I really love this game. Top tier Metroidvania.
Yeah, like this game got so much praise when it came out, and I've heard like loads of other people in the industry say, you know, this is one of the best Ubisoft games in years.
Yeah,
and it's like a kind of a AA game, I guess you could call it. But one thing I wanted to ask is, how is the like map traversal in it and stuff? Is it like easy enough to figure out where you need to go and get around, or like do you end up having to like travel way back in the map or something to like pick things up?
No,
things like that?
Like again, like I was saying, they make this so easy. So there's certain fast travel options that open as you go throughout the game.
Oh, cool.
Everything's really clearly indicated on the map, but they don't do it so much that you don't get to explore and unlock. Like there's a point where I was like, there's a breakable wall in that level. I should go back and check it out. And then it opened up like a whole new area that I didn't even know about. And it was somewhere I would have traveled to later, but I found it early. That's the coolest thing about a Metroidvania, where you break through a wall and you go down a pit and they're like, then you see a new level like title come up on the screen. You're like, oh shit, I'm in like a completely new area just down this back alley.
Wow.
It does that. So, like, that's a classic Metroidvania thing, but it does it well, I should say.
So the map is like kind of easy to figure out and like where you are, where you need to go, that kind of thing. Because that's one thing I found that I dislike a bit about Metroidvanias. Like, I really try to get into Blasphemous because I know you loved that.
They just are like, here's a map, you fucking deal with it, basically.
But like, also that game is like so hard as well.
It's pretty hard.
Like, I was well, not to go on too much of a tangent, but when I was trying to play that, like I died at one point or whatever, and in that, when you die, your health gets like
you get a penalty.
Your health gets limited or whatever. And so until you get back to where you died and like pick up whatever. So I was like, okay, crap, I have to go back and get that. And then I died on the way there to something else.
Classic thing that happens.
So
in those
it's
games,
like, now I need to go to 2 places to get my health bar back to maximum. And it was ages away from where I had saved or spawned or whatever. You know, there was loads of enemies in between. But yeah, that I've tried to play Hollow Knight as well, and I think I know that is praised as like one of the best Metroidvanias ever.
One of my favorite games, But I understand if you get into the map and
it's just a bit difficult, for me as well.
It's part of the genre, really.
Yeah, it is. Oh, 100%.
Oh, we're going to put you in. You need to sort of figure out where you're going. This, I'd say, you'd find this one a bit more easy to manage with that because they make it a bit clearer. But it's a nice balancing act they do where it's not too hand-holdy. Like, there's always going to be an icon on your map that says you have to get here, but they might necessarily say how you get there.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, like, because I don't mind, like, obviously, it's kind of like an open world, I guess, that in that way.
Just on a 2D plane,
I think that's the issue I have, is the 2D plane for some reason just throws me. But this does look really cool, and I have it in my backlog as well, so I will give it a go at some stage, and hopefully can get into it. But yeah,
I'll say it doesn't start amazingly. Like, it takes a little while to get going, but once you unlock a few abilities and stuff like that, it really starts to sing.
Nice, cool.
It's really interesting that this it actually looks it's reminded me a lot of the original Prince of Persia, like the one like from way back when, which is like original 2D, and that was kind of a Metroidvania as well. It wasn't quite, it was more of the cinematic platformer, you know, the one where like jumping was more like something that you do in real life, where you jump about an inch off the ground as opposed to 3 times your own height like Mario does. But obviously, you know, this seems much more ambitious than that, and it's probably something that they were originally trying to do. Well, obviously not what they were originally trying to do. It's a completely different team. But it's when you were saying, like, you know, it looks a bit bland and all that, at least it's staying true to its roots, because that's what it reminds me most of, just the original games, but obviously way better looking. I do absolutely love the idea of taking a snapshot of something and putting it on your map. That should be in every Metroid. Or Metroidvania. That sounds like the best thing this game has got going for it. Despite everything you just said, that just sounds incredible.
No, that's such a genius move. That would be like future Metroidvanias to just steal that idea, because it's such a good idea to use. Funnily enough, you mentioned taking a snapshot being a mechanic. That's
Pokemon
a nice
Snap.
Segue
Here we go
into my next game, number 3, which is Signalis.
Yes, fuck yes.
I knew Sean.
Oh wow,
Sean. It was on Sean's recommendation.
Steve, you need to play this game. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no,
I know.
It's funny. I'll talk about some of the flaws in this game, or sorry, what critics have pointed out as the flaws in this game, and one of them might jar with Steve. But anyway,
okay.
So number 3 is Signalis. This one might be like one of my favorite games of all time, but I just completed it like 2 weeks ago, so I think I needed to sit with it and maybe play through it again once more for it to really, like, I don't know, fully digest it, I guess. But it's a game that I just haven't stopped thinking about since I played it.
Yes, man.
So it's a isometric survival horror game. I won't get too much into the story. You play essentially an android, and you're trying to find somebody. But the way the story unfolds is amazingly done, I have to say. There's a lot of stuff that's mystified and made very abstract, and it was only afterwards, like doing research on it, that a lot of things clicked for me. But when I initially played and completed the game, I still felt I understood the story, and I had a a resolution that felt good. Like I didn't feel like, oh well, there's a load of blank spots. What, none of this makes sense. The central true line of a narrative works really well, even if you don't get all the references and all the oblique sort of imagery that's in the game. All that stuff works so well. I don't like survival horror games. I think we've established that over the years.
But that's more, is that more of a, because of the scary nature?
Yeah, it's a lot because of scary nature. Also, like, the tension and the anxiety side of things. Like, and it's so weird because this game does that stuff so well. Like, one of the main mechanics is resource management in this game. And you're very limited. You've only 6 slots, which is something that, in talking about the criticisms critics had with the game, people hated that initially. So they modified it and patched it so that, for example, your flashlight doesn't take up a slot on your 6 things. So I played that version. I found that a perfect balance because I had to make difficult decisions at each save point about what I would bring with me, because I knew there's 3 keys I need to pick up. The classic Resident Evil thing. There's 3 keys I need to pick up, but I also need ammo, a gun, some healing, because like if I run through that room, I'm definitely going to take some damage. All these decisions that you're going to have to make on the fly are like eloquently done in this game. Like it's so perfectly balanced for all that stuff. I should mention, developed by Rose Engine, I think a 2-person team. Yeah. It came out in 2022, I think. Been in development for years and years and years, and you can see that the care that goes into every screen is amazing. I love the art style, that sort of it's very PS1 throwbacky, but not in a sort of overly, I don't know, nostalgic way. Like it looks really striking in a way that PS1 games didn't. Like the lighting is way more sophisticated, and they use that to great effect. I don't think I've taken screenshots more when I've been playing a game than with this one. Some of the art direction on certain scenes is absolutely amazing. Really like vivid use of color as well. And really interesting themes going throughout the game as well. Like it's very powerful on a thematic and symbolic level, but the main emotional thrust of the story doesn't suffer as a result. Like it really works on those levels. I mentioned there's a couple of flaws that people pointed out. The other one didn't affect me, but I can see how it would affect some people. Is I've heard people say, well, it's just Silent Hill and Resident Evil thrown together sort of thing. Like it wears its influences very much on its sleeve. Very Resident Evil in terms of the presentation and the inventory limit, and very Silent Hill in how it uses its story and symbolism, and even some of the iconography from it. Like the save point is a red screen in this, whereas like Silent Hill 1 was a red square. Like it's very, very, very similar to that. Didn't affect me because I haven't played a lot of those games, so it wasn't like, oh, that's from Silent Hill. So maybe that's why I was saying Steve might bounce off it, as in if he's saying, oh, well, I've already seen this thing, like it's just ripping it off.
Well, I mean, for me, if it's obvious that it's an homage, I'm usually okay with that. But like if it's kind of, you get a sense that like, oh, this is ripping off that. But from what I'm looking at here, this seems very obviously to be an homage to those games from the PS1. I think so. I'd be okay with that.
I think it, like there's a line where you've enough influences that you're doing something interesting with them that it turns into its own thing. Really, you know, like it's not like we don't call first-person games Doom clones anymore, because they've done enough different and taken enough from those games that they've become their own thing. Yeah, fantastic game. Like really, it's quite difficult, especially for me, for someone who bounces off survival horror games a lot of the time. But I stuck with it, and it's because it's just so.
It just pulls you in, like like there's so much mystery in it and everything that you just want to figure out like what the hell is going on. And like I think this was my game of the year last year, possibly. And Steve, I'd love you to play it as well, because I honestly think it's a game we could have like dedicate a whole podcast to talking about it. But
who'd listen to that, sure?
Who's listening to this? For 5 people, and 3 of those
I've
are
got
us.
7 people on mine.
Hi 4 people,
but
we love you.
but yeah, it is. It's an incredible survival horror, and like very much a homage to Silent Hill. And same as just like you, I haven't played any Silent Hill games, so I didn't get those references in it. But I definitely felt the Resident Evil influence in it. But I thought it was just a cool throwback, I guess, to those games.
It does it well, and
totally.
I also love the way it changes and surprises you by. Sometimes it goes first person.
That blew my mind on that.
Those
sections,
like, what's
going on?
It's such a simple thing to do, but those sections were so effective as a result. And the fact that the way I'm not going to get into the way they work narratively, but they work in a very interesting narrative way, those sections as well. Absolutely loved it. Could be number one another day of the week. Really.
Just a shout out to the audio, like the sound design, the music's incredible in it.
Absolutely incredible. The sound of your save screen. There's a scream that happens when you click into save. That's amazing. That frightened the shit out of me when I first did it. And then weirdly became reassuring as the game went on. To make a scream reassuring throughout the game is a very interesting thing to do, I think. Absolutely. I could talk for days about Signalis. I'm definitely going to play. It's in my favorites ever, I think. It's
definitely on my like top games as well. I'm hoping that they'll do, I don't know what they're going to do next. This was their debut game, Rose Engine, but they have, I think, both worked in the industry before this, like, for quite a while.
It was slick. There wasn't any moment where I was like, that was a bit, well, it was only 2 people, they probably didn't have time to finish this part. This doesn't work mechanically. No, it was very smooth experience throughout the whole thing.
But yeah.
And and my number 2 game is Tunic.
Oh wow!
I had a feeling this would be up there. All right.
So it's I'm after talking so much lovely stuff about Signalis that it's like, how can games be above this in Michael's opinion? But Tunic was I've never played a game like it really. It's even hard to sort of describe why I love it. It sort of nails. It's almost got like a Metroidvania feel. It's also being compared to Dark Souls in some ways, but it's got this weird tilt-shifted isometric thing going on. Just like while footage is on screen, I love the art style that they make it look like a diorama or like a toy set in some ways. That's something they do a very good job of sort of subverting as the game goes on, and it gets a little darker because obviously it looks so idyllic at the moment and very like early Zelda level reminiscence going on there. You'll see on screen as well at times a manual come up which is mainly in a language that a made up language for the game. This is the most genius mechanic I've seen in a game in ages. It was influenced by the developer, what's his name? Sorry, I have it here. Andrew Schuldice. Mostly a solo developed game. Came out in 2022.
Wow.
It was influenced by his experience as a kid buying foreign import games and getting the manual and not knowing what the fuck anything is and just trying to figure out how to play. And this is what this game does. If you know what to do at certain points, you can like jump forward to like way further in the game, but it's because you literally don't know anything when you start. That very simple stuff is just hidden behind this manual, and you eventually figure it out either through trial and error, or you unlock another piece of information that you can tie to this, and then it's like, oh, it's at that point in the manual. So if I do it over here, will that mean X? And then you open the door and you're in a new level.
That's like, really cool.
The moment that stuff clicked with me, I was absolutely hooked. Incredible level design as well. Again, another sort of reference has been the Dark Souls series in the way that they have these central hubs that sort of overlap and shortcuts that cut back on each other, and just very satisfying to realize, oh wait, I'm back at X when I thought I was at the other side of the map. Like all that sort of stuff works really well. I love the combat. Some people bounced off the combat. They said it was too difficult. For me, it was just the right amount, and I'm not especially good at this game, but it's incredibly demanding and unforgiving when you first start because you're quite weak and you don't have a weapon, you don't have a shield. But once you start to get into the rhythm of the game and understand how the mechanics work, it really becomes a lot more manageable and interesting to come up against certain enemies. It just really clicked with me. I haven't played anything like this before. It has a lot of very, again, like Signalis, very obvious influences, and like Zelda and Dark Souls and stuff like that being like at the forefront of that. But it manages to be something very different from all those games. So just
he's so cute.
Yeah, no, it's an adorable game as well. Like very pleasing sort of atmosphere, cozy vibes at times, and then they subvert them at other times in really effective ways. Yeah, it becomes its own thing. Very, very much a vibes game as well, and yeah, just really blew me away. Another one that sort of stuck in my brain for a long time after, I should say.
Well,
this is another one that's on my list. I'm very, very much looking forward to playing it at some stage.
Yeah, I won't get into more like just let it. Don't look up anything to do with it beforehand.
Oh, okay,
I would say.
cool.
Not that there's a big twist, but just about like that whole thing of figuring out what to do. That's part of the journey.
Yeah.
You'll be lost for a lot of it, and that's part of the fun.
I'm sure that like made up language has been completely decoded on Reddit now.
It has.
Something.
I've looked it up. Those people put them together in a room and they'll figure anything out. Really, those nerds. But the nerds. But the fucking cool thing is that it can be decoded. Like they put the thought in that this will all make sense, and completing the manual was a very, very satisfying thing to do.
Yeah, I'd say
I should
so.
say. The art in the manual is perfect as well. It just seems like an old game manual. Like you can see him flicking through it. Like it looks like one of those. It's just a very beautifully made. Oh, sorry. One point on that: they physically made the manual and scanned the pages.
No way.
To get that effect on screen. Yeah.
And sorry, cool. you did you say this was one guy?
It's mostly Andrew Schuldeis. But he did have other people help.
Okay.
So I think it was a larger team, but it was initially started by him. Very small team, anyway, regardless. Another, like, Rose Engine that I'm waiting to hear what they're going to do next, to be honest. Absolutely amazing game. I loved it. It's sort of like, I think my review on GG was, it's like if Fez was good. I know I'm
shots fired.
I fell off that as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted to love it, but I just,
I like Fez, but I know what you mean. It's kind of a hard sell. You kind of do have to like persevere through that game.
Yeah, it's like if
I get where you're coming
Fez
from.
liked the player, if you get me, and didn't have something out for them. I don't know do we want to go to our worst games now before we do the best? Do you want to end on the best?
Yeah,
what do you feel?
Maybe that's a nicer way to end rather than shitting on a game.
Yeah. So we'll throw it to Steve first of all for his worst game of the year.
Okay, so you'll probably... So I played a lot of bad games this year. Like, this feels like not a good year for games for me. Like, even like my top games are like, oh yeah, there's issues. There's no games that I absolutely adored this year. But quite a few that I really bounced off, really hated. And I was stuck between three. I'll tell you the other two first. One of them was... what was it? Life is Strange Before the Storm, which I don't know if you've ever played those games. Dialogue in is absolutely atrocious.
It's like teenager speak, really, isn't it?
Some
Written
people
by a
say
40-year-old.
Some people will say that those games, like, that's the point. It's supposed to sound like that. It doesn't change the fact that it's cringy as hell. Anyone who has played those games before listening will know. Welcome to the rock show, Shaka Bra, or what was it again? Something like that. It was awful. But this was kind of a DLC mini, not quite a sequel. You know those not quite a sequel games? Yeah, it was that, and it was just, I hated it. I hated almost every moment of it. Another one that I hated was, there's quite a few, believe it or not.
Steve hates gaming, is what we're trying to say.
pretty much. Do you know what? I'll just tell you what the worst one was. The worst game I played, and Michael might have heard about this, Sean, you probably haven't. It was called Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders.
Zack McCracken. Oh my god. Well, we've gone from the worst game title to the best game title ever. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, definitely not.
Okay, so Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders is a LucasArts adventure game.
Oh,
and the reason you haven't heard about it is because they haven't re-released it, and there are reasons for that.
Yeah, okay.
This game is just bad. It's really badly made. The biggest issue that I have, there's a bunch of issues. First of all, like, it's kind of dull. Unlike other LucasArts adventure games, about 60% of the game is just you're in a maze and you have to find a way out. Like, no puzzles.
Okay.
It's just identical screens. Find the way out. You have to memorize it, and it's pretty bad. There's one or two jokes that I was kind of like, that's kind of funny, but nothing made me like really burst out laughing, which, you know, the likes of Monkey Island would have done. But the worst thing about this game, absolute worst thing, is there is a money system.
Oh no!
So you have money in this game.
Le Bakery.
At least it's got jokes. Yeah.
It does have jokes, to its credit. But the reason that's bad is you travel all around the world in this game. And every time you travel, like on a bus, on the plane, on the train, you have to spend money. And there isn't, as far as I could tell, there's no real way to make money back except selling your items. But you don't know if you're going to need your items in the future.
No.
What the hell?
Can you soft lock yourself by selling an item?
You can soft lock yourself so easily in this game.
Oh my god! Why?
I restarted this game twice because I soft locked myself.
Oh my god!
Okay. I wanted to play it because like I made it like my mission. I want to play through all the LucasArts adventure games because I love those games. But my god, this was awful. Yeah, it's just really, really, and like again, it's not particularly funny. There's a weird mechanic where you can switch between different characters. Two of them are on the moon, and you can switch to them at any point, but you have almost nothing to do with them until the end of the game. It's like, what is the point of that?
Okay.
It's just, yeah, no, it's the soft locking thing. That was the worst. Like all the other games, at the very least, that didn't happen. But the fact that you could theoretically soft lock yourself within minutes of starting the game.
You won't know that until later in the game, will you?
Exactly. So you can get like close to the end of the game and be like, what the hell am I supposed to do? It's like, obviously you're supposed to use the cowboy hat in the toilet. I was like, God damn it. So yeah, this is just like obviously, as people watching this can tell, this is a very old game, and this is just something a lot of old games did. But my God, it's aged. But the thing is, I read about this in a book saying like, this is one of the greatest games ever made. It's so important, and I was like, half of that statement is true. You know, it's important, yes, but it's not good. It's really, really bad.
Can I have two questions.
Shoot.
One is, yeah, you say it's an old game. What was this on? Like MS-DOS or something?
Yeah, it was like ZX Spectrum, like really like this came out like, you know, mid to late 80s, I think.
So you just played like
an emulator
or something.
I had it's on Steam, so like I just picked it up off Steam. So this actually, what you're looking at now is actually a remastered version. The original version looked way worse.
Oh god.
Yeah, my second question was, you mentioned at the start about issues around re-releasing it or something.
So LucasArts Adventure Games, like they have re-released all of their classic games, like Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Grim Fandango, etc., etc. I always wondered, like, how come they never released this one? I got my bloody answer. It's it's just really, truly, truly horrendous.
I thought you were going to say like they lost the source code for it or something.
Which does happen.
No. They were just literally like, this game is not good. Why would we release this? So like, there's no reason to, because it's just, they've got other games that improve on this on every conceivable level. Yeah, so fair. There's no reason for them to do it.
Just before we move on, can I ask, do you know, Steve, maybe you don't know, did Tim Schafer work on this, or Ron
I think he did. I think they both did. Okay. Again, you have to remember, this is like really early on. This is before Monkey.
We might have.
I think before, the only other game of note that they had really made.
So, Steve, we lost you for a second.
Sorry, you're back now. You cut out for a second, but you're back. Yeah.
So at this point, they'd released Maniac Mansion, which was like their big hit. And I think they'd also released an Indiana Jones game. And this was like their third game, I think. And this was like, again, this actually did relatively well, but it just wasn't as popular as the others. And then, of course, they did Secret of Monkey Island, and that skyrocketed them up. So
okay, that's a good one. That's it. Like old adventure games are fucked, but that like
they're so
selling
bad.
your items, that's the worst thing. That's because like you did it to yourself. You went in and you sold it and you got money and you spent it on Pokemon cards or something.
Well, I would like to issue the challenge now. Can any of you top that for the worst game ever?
Don't. I think that might. Well, we'll see. Okay.
Before we do that, Steve, are you able to? Did you have any luck finding footage?
No. What I'm going to do, just for anyone listening, I'm going to post a link to the video I was going to send into the chat, so you can just click on that and watch it on another tab.
Do you want to send me that link? Because I can download it. See, can I download it here?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. If you just want to send it to me on the chat. So yeah, and I'll move on to my worst game, I guess.
Well, if you're doing something there, I can talk about mine. It's
actually, yeah, fine. Yeah, let's do that if that's all right.
If you're
that
doing
makes more
technical
sense.
stuff.
Perfect.
So my worst game of the year is...
Oh, I need to get it up for you though.
Yeah, it's one Steve has played as well. It's Resident Evil 6.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah.
Me and Steve played this it was partly this year, but I think we've been playing it for like, I don't know, 18 months or something because, yeah, it's...
You need breaks.
You do need breaks. I can see why they did a lot of things they did. At the time when this came out, Gears of War and games like that were really big. Action games were the big thing. It's the PS3, 360 era of games. But they completely fucked Resident Evil. Like, they got it so wrong. It doesn't, like, I'm not sure if you agree with me, Steve, but it really doesn't even work as a co-op game. Like...
Yeah, I mean, we also played through Resident Evil 5, and I have renewed love for that game because I thought that was fine. But then when we played through it co-op, I was like, oh, this is how you're really supposed to play the game. This is excellent. And yeah, this version, they get so much stuff wrong. Like, it's so easy to get distracted. Like, we had a good time, I will say, but in spite of the game.
Yeah, laughing at the game a lot of the time.
Oh man, the motorbike. There's a cutscene in at one point where two of your characters are like on a motorbike trying to escape from a helicopter or something. And in the version that we were playing, like the motorbike like bursts out of a tunnel, but like it glitched. So the motorbike was in the exact same position, but upside down and just like flying all over. And like it stuck like that for a while. And we were just in stitches laughing at it. It was awful.
And so a lot of the cheesy lines is all as well we laughed at. But there isn't as much of that. It isn't as fun in a cheesy way as almost any other Resident Evil. It's way more serious and full of itself.
Really convoluted. Like it's extremely convoluted, and they were trying to do something sorry, I know this is your game. I should be letting you talk about
do it, man. Let it fly.
But like they're going for this like quite epic, like overlapping adventures. Like, oh, that was like that thing that we saw. But they're kind of fucked themselves with that because everything's so forgettable that like we were like, why is he acting like he knows that guy? Oh shit, did we meet him already? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And even not just that, but there's stuff that happens in previous games that doesn't, because the art style at this point has changed so much, you don't recognize that certain people are the people they are. Like Sherry from Resident Evil 2 is in this game as a playable character, and I didn't realize it was her until like near the end of the game. It's like, oh, that's that girl. Oh.
Is that the blonde girl that you play in the snowy parts?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell. Okay, well,
see,
there
you didn't
go.
even know. There you go.
That's insane.
Can I just say the HUD is absolutely horrible in this as well? What were they doing? Is it meant to be like a phone or something and it's like turned a bit to the side?
Do you know another one of the worst things in it is the way health is done? It's so clunky. You have to go into a separate menu than what the HUD you're seeing at the moment and assign your health to this, what's basically like a Tic Tac container where you take a little pill to regain health. Yeah, I never got used to it. It's so bad. And it means, can you, like, one of the reasons it doesn't work as co-op is you can't really share things around as easily, or can we even share items? I can't remember.
I think we can, but it's convoluted. Like, and the amount of times we booted this game up and we was like, okay, what was the button to do this again? Because they move stuff around. Like, it's not a standardized control scheme, and it's just Oh, really, really bad. But yeah, the health thing was really bad in particular because you've got green herbs, which historically you were just kind of like, take green herb, eat. But now it's like, take green herb, make it usable, use usable green herb. It's like, why? What's the point of that?
They just added an extra step for no reason whatsoever. Another
to
thing,
his credit, though, Leon has a very cool black jacket in it.
He does. What you're like, the footage up at the moment is probably the best part of the game. The Leon campaign is like at least got some cool sections and atmospheric bits. Like the train track bit is like probably the highlight.
The highlight, yeah.
But another thing is like RE5 throws you into so many interesting co-op experiences where one person's cut off and you have to cover them, or you have to turn a wheel to open up a door for someone else while they're under pressure. This doesn't have any of that. It doesn't even seem like it's designed for co-op. It's just generic, let's go forward, do the next part. Oh, we have to button mash here. We missed the button mash. We died. We have to go back. Like so many of those instances as well. Like really bad QTEs on top of everything. I really didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I played this back in the day, but I only played Leon's campaign. I think I played a little bit of Chris's, or not? Is it Chris? Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, it's mad that this flop, or that it was so much of a flop, because it seemed like they were trying to make this like the biggest Resident Evil yet, because there's so much content in it, isn't there?
It's a very long game.
Yeah.
Can I interject one thing though there? Just that when we say flop, this was a critical flop. This, for the longest time, was their best-selling game.
Yeah,
really.
It sold like
was that because of anticipation for it? Maybe
it came after 4 and 5. You know, like which were big games, and like I know 5 got a lot of criticisms for a number of reasons, but it's still, that was a really high-selling game as well, and got pretty good reviews.
Because I do remember there being loads of hype before this came out, because it was meant to be such a huge game, and they were like adding so many, like, three campaigns, isn't it?
4.
Oh, 4 campaigns.
Actually,
right.
We haven't even finished the last one.
Oh God, that might be the worst one as well, potentially.
Yeah.
The only enjoyment is the cheesiness. Like, it begins with like 10,000 explosions happening and you running from them, and then a plane falls, and it's like
you shoot the president. Don't forget you shoot the president at the start of the game.
And like, on paper that sounds really fun and cheesy and amazing, but it's actually really dour, and it's just the era of gaming where everything was super serious and everyone talked like this, and Chris, did you betray me? And it's like, no, it was Ada. I was like, oh, when did that happen again? Oh, was Ada a copy of herself, or a clone, or?
Oh, yeah. Even now, I'm unsure of that, but I think there's 2 Adas in this game, and I completely forget why.
Oh, and another horrible part of the game, which may or may not be on the screen, is the part in the car where you have to figure out where the keys are, while all the zombies are coming all over you, and then reverse out, and it's like, it's just really badly done. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of redeeming qualities for it, unfortunately. But yeah. So, Sean, what's your worst game of the year?
So, my worst game, I mean, again, this was kind of difficult to decide. I played a lot of games this year, but like I was saying earlier, not like I didn't really stick with too many bad ones. One game I did stick with, though that was a bad one, was Watch Dogs Legion.
Oh, set in London, where we are.
Yeah, so
London.
I had played the first 2 Watch Dogs games, and then I remember when Legion was coming out, I was like really excited for it. Set in London, seemed like the biggest game yet and stuff. Sorry, let me get it on screen.
Had an intriguing mechanic where you swap your character.
Well, yeah, that was its main selling point and its main downfall, is the thing.
Oh,
So, 1 sec, let me just get it up here. Cool. So, Watch Dogs Legion, set in London. The main mechanic in it is that there is no central protagonist. You can play as anybody you see on the street, and how you do that, you have to recruit them into DedSec, which is the kind of rebel hacker organization that you're part of. You recruit them usually by doing like a short side quest, get them on side, and then you can swap to them at any point in the game. Like on the face of it, it's like a pretty cool concept, and like each person you meet in the street would have different abilities. So, say you could recruit a construction worker, and they would be able to go into construction sites like that, maybe in restricted areas, no
sort of
problem.
like Hitman in a way with disguises. That's cool.
Yeah, but instead of a uniform, it's a whole other person.
Yeah.
But then, like, one of the really annoying things with this was that your items were limited to the person you were playing as. So a construction worker, I think, had a wrench and maybe a stun gun, but that was it.
Yeah.
You couldn't get any other weapon with them. But then on the flip side, you could play as a soldier or an MI6 agent as well, and they would have guns and like maybe a unique vehicle and things. But what ended up happening then is you would just figure out what kind of play style you wanted and stick with that character. And when the game originally came out, it had permadeath built into it for each character. Because you could play as anyone in the world, if you died as someone, they were dead forever. Like they would be gone from the organization, and you would have to, say if it was a soldier, you'd have to go recruit another soldier then so that was like really annoying. So they ended up adding in an option to turn that on or off. So I played it with it off because I was just like, this is already a bad game. Like, I'm not going to make it harder on myself. So like story-wise as well, it was only okay. It was kind of just a typical like defeat the like bad organization that's trying to ruin the world kind of thing. And yeah, like in terms of like I guess actual gameplay, the combat and stuff was fine. It was pretty similar to the earlier two games. They did like do a pretty good job, I think, of recreating central London. Like you could go.
That's what I was going to ask. Knowing it in person, can you navigate your way to certain areas?
Can. Wow. That was the cool.
What is going on screen there? Just like this close up of this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I just ripped this video. But, that was one thing that they did. One of the best elements of the game was the recreation of central London. They did like shrink it down a little bit,
of course, yeah,
a little bit like The Getaway actually. And so yeah, it was cool though to go around and see like these locations on current gen hardware. Like
you
with the good
just had to shoehorn in a reference to The fucking Getaway. Yeah, nobody cares about The Getaway.
Is my Donkey Konga.
Damn you, man! I was going to save that to my best game of the year.
But do you know what? It had enough in it to keep me playing, but definitely like so. I actually played it on Stadia first a couple of years ago, if anyone remembers.
That's a blast from the past.
But then I just fell off it because I was like, it's not hitting the same as the first two. And like the first two games were only ever okay anyway. They weren't amazing. The second one is definitely the best.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, and even looks really good today. Like, I remember like people were putting up footage of that being like, GTA 6 leaked. No, it's clearly not. But sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. What was I saying?
I'm loving the footage of the old woman here shuffling along and just like taking out soldiers. This is the thing. Like, I mean, this is an example of a good idea just badly executed, because pretty much everyone says the same things. Like, oh yeah, really, really cool idea, like very fun. And I've actually watched a detailed breakdown of how NPCs work in this game, and it's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
it just doesn't look particularly fun to play.
I think it could have worked better if they could have still had like a cast of characters to play from, maybe, but maybe it was like reduced to like, I don't know, 5 to 10, and they were all part of DedSec, and you could swap between them at different times. But the fact that they made everybody so throwaway because you could play as anyone, like there were some special characters like I can't remember his Aiden something or whatever, the guy from the first game. He came in.
Oh, how could you forget him, man? The most memorable character in all of gaming history.
He was added in as DLC, and you could play as him, and he had like really powerful guns and stuff. Just going back to the gameplay, sorry, like the traversal and stuff around was fine, and the combat was fine. The hacking was like pretty okay as well. Like just all around okay game. But by the time I went back to it, because it was sitting in my backlog, because I was like, oh yeah, I'll go back and finish that. I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to finish it for the sake of finishing it, because I had played the first two. And but I was so glad when it was done. I was like, yeah, I'm not playing the DLC. I'm done with this game.
Mark of a bad game.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, cool.
But
then we're getting on to our favorite game.
Yes, and I've managed to get that video for you, Steve. So,
Okay.
Oh, sick. Thanks, man. Okay.
Throw it over to Steve. Before you get in, any honorable mentions? Just quickly, if you wanted to give them, Steve.
Yeah, actually, when I was talking about Dead Space, another one that I was kind of like, oh, maybe was Doki Doki Literature Club.
Oh yeah, cool.
Which is kind of a random one, I know. It didn't quite win out, because when I was comparing the two, I was kind of like, listen, Dead Space is such a full experience, I'd play it again, etc. Whereas Doki Doki Literature Club, while very unique, very interesting, really is a one-off experience. There's not really much reason to play it again. Have either of you guys played it?
No, I know the twist though.
Okay, yeah. Well, one thing that I absolutely adored in that is they kind of tweak with your game files a little bit at the end to kind of play tricks on you. And that freaked me out hugely. Like, I was playing like late at night in the dark, you know, as I like to do with horror games. And when something happened, which I'm not going to reveal, but something happens near the end, and I was like, holy shit. Like, it really chilled me, like, when it happened. I was like, that's amazing. And I had to kind of calm myself down, saying, oh no, wait, no, they probably just have access to the files in my computer. That's okay. That's fine. Okay.
I like that a game can do that. Okay.
Yeah. Other honorable mention is actually a prequel to a game mentioned already. It was Hellblade.
Oh,
yeah, I really, really liked the original one. I thought it was excellent. Really liked the combat in it. I think the combat's underrated.
yeah, it's really good.
Very fun.
But sorry, you didn't play the second one, Steve, no?
No, not yet.
Oh,
I've
right,
only played
okay.
the original.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, no, for my number one game, now this one's going to be a little surprising, just considering the size of the game itself. It's quite a small game, but I can't really think of any flaws in it. And my number one game is Radiant Silvergun.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool.
What the fuck is going on screen there? Sorry, there was just like a guy hitting a PC with a plastic bottle, like in real time. What?
Oh, okay. Whoops. Never mind that.
But yeah. Anyway, Radiant Silvergun. I was actually playing this while Michael was over here in Japan. So I don't remember if I played it while you were there. Don't know if you saw any of it.
It is familiar to me. Yes.
Okay. Well, it's a weird one for so many reasons. Okay. First of all, it's very retro and it's quite small. It's a shmup. So there's only 6 levels in the entire game. And it's also a roguelike, which is a genre I have never gotten on with. So weird. It's really bizarre that all of these things come together in something that really works for me. So the fact that it's a shmup and that it's a roguelike, they actually come together to make something really amazing, because the fact that you have to replay the levels again and again and again means that you're actually getting better at the levels without really realizing it. Like, by the time I finished the game, the first 2 levels, I was on autopilot. I knew exactly how to beat it. Like, I was just kind of barely even thinking about it. And it feels really amazing when you get like, holy crap, I'm on the 4th level and I haven't lost a life yet. That's incredible. But it increases in difficulty. It gets harder and harder and harder. And what you're seeing on screen now might look like a bullet hell. It's nothing compared to the end of the game.
Yeah.
It gets crazy by the end of the game, like really insane. There's a point where I'd say literally 70% of the screen is covered in bullets.
Jesus.
Like, and I mean like literally covered, but like tiny spaces that you can actually like fly into. And you just kind of have to hope you can survive it. Tons of weapons available from the start, like really, really cool ones. You can kind of see on screen sometimes he's got this sword thing that spins around.
That looks sick.
That's the MVP of the game. That thing there, like, that's great because it can absorb bullets, and if you absorb enough, it turns gigantic and kind of fills up the entire screen, knocking everybody out. It's got a storyline as well, which not really worth talking about, if I'm being honest. It's kind of a generic Rebel Alliance going up against the Empire anime story with a kind of a father-son dynamic going on there as well. It's fine, it's serviceable, but doesn't really intrude in the gameplay either, so that's grand. But it's just really fun to play. Like, there's nothing about I didn't know you could do that. So I just saw him like leave a bomb there. I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. That's awesome. Yeah, it just feels really good to play. All like so many weapons. Oh, and like you level up your weapons as well. So you start off on like 0 for all your weapons, but every playthrough you go through, your like weapons are slowly leveling up. So they get stronger and stronger and stronger until eventually, even if like you're not learning the level layouts very well, your weapons are getting stronger. So you will eventually beat the game. It just kind of depends on, will it be when your weapons are stronger or will it be when you've memorized the game, you know?
Yeah, seeing some of the bullet hell stuff even in this early stage is just like filling me with anxiety as well.
This is all the first level. All that you're seeing here
No way,
is the
really?
first level. Yeah, it's all first level. And like I'm looking at him like this looks piss easy compared to like what I've seen at the end. So and yet you basically fight like transformers at the end, like things that turn, like there's literally a giant Puma robot airship thing at the end you fight. It's insane. So really fun.
How long is like each level? And do you like, is the main, when you die, say like on level 5, you go back to the very beginning, is it?
So you have like 3 lives, but here's the thing: this is a re-release, by the way, on the Switch. It was different in the original game, but in the re-release, every 10 minutes you spend playing the game, you get an additional life to your initial lives. So you start off with 3, but like when I finally finished the game, I had something like 40.
Wow.
But I spent about 20 of those on the last boss. So yeah, well, you have, like I said, you have like 3 lives or whatever. It's only when you lose all your lives you go back to the start. Like if you lose a life, you just respawn very quickly.
Cool. Yeah.
I dig in the aesthetic as well, like and if I've a very just surface level knowledge of this genre, but the soundtracks are generally fucking amazing. Is it the same case in this one?
It's good. I wouldn't say like it's super memorable or anything, but like it's good. Like I never like listened to podcasts or anything because I enjoyed the music like while I was playing. But but at the same token though, I wouldn't be like, no, yeah, it's fantastic. Moon was better for soundtracks. That was the best soundtrack I listened to all year.
Okay, sick, very good,
nice.
Sean, what's your top game of the year?
Cool. So before that, just a few honorable mentions. So I was almost going to put this as my number one, a bit of a Game Awards moment, because it was going to be DLC, which was Phantom Liberty for Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I went back and played through Cyberpunk from the start earlier this year to do the Phantom Liberty DLC as well, and man, it's incredible.
I'm tempted to go back to it.
It's really good. Like even if you just go back for the DLC, because you can play that like it's, you have to progress through the story a little bit before you can do that, but only a small amount. Like you don't have to play for 20 or 30 hours before you get to it. But it's just like, yeah, it's an amazing DLC, and how it weaves into the main story is like incredible. And it actually adds there's a few different endings to the DLC, but it also adds a new ending to the whole game as well.
Okay. I might revisit it. Yeah.
I think yeah, it's worth it. Also, I'll just say, because I know you played it at launch, Cyberpunk, like it's way better now than what it was. Like it was like not playing it like a whole different game, but
I've heard people say it's almost like just a completely different experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much more stable, and like the quality of life improvements they've given it have really like changed it for the better. But yeah, anyway, that was just an honorable mention. Really enjoyed playing that. I think I had a few other ones, so I'm just going to quickly check.
Yeah, just give us one more.
Yeah.
Michael needs to pee.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, I'm good.
Actually,
no, don't worry.
just a couple of more I'll rattle off without going into detail. Dead Space Remake was up there as well. Still Wakes the Deep, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the one set on an oil rig?
Yeah.
That looks sick.
Really cool, yeah. What else did I have? Haunty, which is a really cool like indie game. Kind of a Metroidvania, actually, in a sense.
Haunty.
Haunty with 2 eyes at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of a game on Game Pass. It's all monochrome, but like the collectibles and stuff are in color. And I just like threw it on because it was on Game Pass. Thought it'd be kind of like Dredge for like a little relaxing game. got sucked into it, and yeah, it's incredible. But anyway, my number one game of the year, which should come as no surprise, is Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl.
Okay.
Have you finished it yet? No, I don't know. Yeah, you don't have to have finished it, but obviously it's
no, and that's why I was nearly going to omit this because let me just get it on screen as well. Get this shmup off here. I was almost going to omit it because I haven't finished it, and also there are issues with the game at the moment, which I'll talk about a little bit. But so yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a huge fan of the Stalker franchise. I'd say it's probably my favorite game series of all time.
Wow.
And so I played the originals back in the day, not when they released, like the first game came out in 2007. I'd say I played that around like 2009 or something, like a couple of years after. Then I played, so the first three games are all set around the same plot, basically. I guess like the second and third game were almost like standalone expansions for the first game in a way. But in just a bit of history on Stalker 2 and kind of like why it's been such a gap. In, I think it was 2010, Stalker 2 was announced officially by GSC Game World in Ukraine. And yeah, and then I think it was due to be released in 2012. And then in early 2012, they announced the studio was closing. It's still a bit kind of hazy as to why they closed down, but like I think it was most likely financial reasons. And the game wasn't shelved straight away. Some of the workers said, some of the employees said they were going to continue to work on it, but then I think later in that year they were just like, yeah, we're going to have to cancel it. Okay. So GSC then reformed in 2014, and in I think it was 2018 they announced that Stalker 2 was back in development and had been for a while. They had pretty much scrapped all the work that had been done on it. I think they've taken some of the story points that were going to be in the original Stalker 2 back in 2010. But obviously it's been 15 years since Call of Pripyat, which was the third game, in 2009. So this new Stalker 2 is in Unreal Engine 5. It's current gen systems, obviously.
It looks amazing.
It is incredible. Like I was talking about Unreal Engine 5 earlier with Hellblade, same vibe here. Like the facial capture and just the world is insane. They wanted to make a fully open world, and they did that. It's a 60 square kilometer world map, I think.
Oh, wow.
With no loading screens anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, the previous games had big maps as well, but each area had a loading screen basically going between them. But yeah, so I'm just loving this game at the moment. I'm probably only about halfway, if even that, through the game, but they hit the nail on the head with like what makes a Stalker game a Stalker game. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, it's got a little bit of immersive sim in there as well. It's got survival horror in it. It's first person shooter. It's basically like a big blend of things all in one.
All the things Sean's likes, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's made for me. It is like, it can be pretty brutal at times. Like I've seen there was a lot of hype built up around this coming out, and I've seen loads of like Call of Duty players and stuff jumping into it and just getting wrecked. Like, straight. You can't play it like that. Like each engagement, you have to even decide if it's worth going into the engagement, because like you're gonna use valuable ammo in it. You're gonna take damage to your weapons and your suits, which need to be repaired then down the line. But you need money to do that, and yeah, like you can only get money by selling things or doing jobs.
Maybe I'm wrong. On certain difficulties, if you reload your gun and the magazine isn't empty, do you lose those bullets? Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I don't think. Yeah,
okay,
no,
maybe I read that about a different game.
Unless it is, and I'm not noticing.
Yeah, losing bullets every 5 minutes.
I think that might be one of the Metro games. There's like a difficulty on that's like proper survivalist. I think that's the one you might be thinking.
I have played a game before where that happens though. I can't remember what it's called.
Because like I reload every bullet.
But so I mean, there's a certain, for anybody who's like into the Stalker franchise, there's just a certain vibe of vibe that you get from playing one of those games, and they completely nailed that going into this. Like within the first 5 minutes, it felt right, you know. Now there is, like, I will say, there is a lot of jank and bugs in the game. It's funny because the earlier games were known for being buggy as well, and so when this came out with bugs, everybody like was just like, oh, that's fine, that's like what a true Stalker experience is like. But the studio is like 100% committed to like fixing anything that's going wrong. They've already brought out 3 patches in like 2 weeks.
And we should mention also that the Ukraine war has had a massive impact on them. Yeah,
of course. Like the game was actually originally slated for 2022, I believe, and but then we all know the Russia invaded Ukraine and they got kind of thrown into disarray. Half the studio left Ukraine and set up an office in Prague, and half of them stayed in Kyiv. So they've been kind of like split up that way. They have to work in like shelters when there's an air raid going on, and it's a really tough time for them. Unfortunately, like some of the devs died as well, actually serving in the armed forces during the war.
I've heard that the in memory section in the credits is quite long.
I saw that. I think there's like 138 names or something in the credits. Really like difficult circumstances for them to even release the game at all is incredible. And like this Stalker has a huge cult following, and everybody like all the fans have just been like completely what's the word, like just so grateful for them in what they're doing, and like take your time. Like when it was originally meant to come out in 2022, then they delayed it to I think, was it then? Well, it got delayed like 2 or 3 times after that. And each delay, people were like, no problem. Take as long as you need.
Yeah,
like,
well, fucking understandable. Like,
but
gamers can be very entitled, but come on.
They can, But also it's just like, you know, we know that like the game they're going to release is going to be like faithful and true to the originals, and that's kind of all anybody wants. Like this isn't a cash grab by them in any means, you know. The devs that are working on this now grew up playing the original games, so they they know what makes a true Stalker game. They're
fans.
Yeah, completely.
Can I ask you one thing? Do you think it's better than the Metro games?
I would prefer the series to the Metro games. The Metro series 4A Games made them, and they actually used to be former members of GSC. They left to form 4A, I think, around like 2009, 2010 or something. So there is a lot of crossover there, and I love the Metro games as well. But they're a bit of a different vibe. Especially the first 2 are more linear. I know Exodus kind of like branched out a bit, whereas like Stalker was always like, here's an open map, you know, you can go and do things in whatever order you want to do them. But yeah, that's my game of the year.
I sort of knew that one was coming with you. Yeah,
I knew there'd be guns in it anyway.
Of course.
But yeah, over to you, Michael, for your game of the year.
Honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions.
First, my honorable mentions. Just 2 quick ones. One would be I played the Demon Souls remake this year. It was fantastic. I had got it when I first got a PS5 like a year or 2 ago or whenever it was, and bounced off it immediately because that's what you do with Souls games sometimes when you first boot them up. But I put the head down, played through it. Amazing. Obviously not the same experience as the original, which I only briefly played. But some of the level design is maybe the best in any Souls game I've played. What's the name? Towers of Latria? Is that it?
Tower of Latria is amazing, yeah.
The atmospheric design in that is like unrivaled. It is so fucking cool and creepy and epic and gothic. Like they absolutely nailed that. Didn't certain element, like it's all broken up into levels and stages a bit more than the other ones, which have a more connected world. There's pros and cons to that. I think I prefer the interconnected worlds of some of the other games, but absolutely amazing. It just barely didn't make the list. And the other one, which wasn't going to be on the list because it's definitely like a 7 out of 10 game, but it was really my jam, was RoboCop Rogue City. I'm like a medium fan of RoboCop I've only ever seen the first film. I think the first film is sick, but like it's not like, oh, I'm going to search out a RoboCop thing. They nail the tone. They get voice actors back. the aesthetic is so RoboCop. You move so slowly, and I love that. That's such an important part of it. Like,
and that's kind of like a AA game too, isn't it?
Pretty much a AA game.
Who made that?
I can't remember their name. They developed that Terminator
Judgment
game.
Day thing.
I think it was called Rise of something a few years ago, and similarly, that seemed to nail the tone of the films as well. It's almost like mini Fallout 3 in a way.
Wow.
Little side quests, little small open world, a lot of jank, but really nails the core gameplay loop and has lots of interesting side missions and dialogue and stuff like that, which I really loved. And it's completely like nails the tone of that first film. The sort of over-the-top 80s corporate greed thing is very funny in the game, and they're very well aware of it, I have to say.
Class.
So my game of the year, should I say games of the year? Because I cheated.
This chap breaking the rules again.
I cheated, and there's 2 games in it. But
Capcom Fighting Collection.
You'll understand why. Capcom's Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 4 Remake.
I see.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Because I had to put both of them in because there's so little between them. If I had to give it to one, it would be the original. I'll get into that. But this was a revelation for me. I've said it a million times, I hate survival horror games because I'm scared and I'm not good at them. But this is different because it's not scary at all. First of all, that helps. It's just the most anxiety-inducing game I've ever played. The pressure you're under during sections is so intense, but brilliant as well. Like, the highlights of the game are the initial assault on the village, which is the footage I have on screen.
Yeah.
And like some of these rooms are etched in my memory. That room with all the fountains in it where you have Ashley and you're defending her and you have to turn the dials to lift up things and all. That's amazing. There's so many just brilliantly designed encounters in the game. It's like an unrivaled combat loop as well. Both games have a very different sort of feel for them in that way, and I think they both. Remakes can be like redundant in a lot of ways, and maybe it comes up a bit with like the Dead Space one, where it seems like it's almost just a fresh coat of paint or something. But I feel like they play differently enough, these 2 games, that, like, for example, when I played the original first, RE4, and then I played the remake later in the year. And when I first started playing the remake, I was doing the classic hit him in the leg, knock him over, and then knife him on the ground. But that's not the loop that is most efficient in this game. You need to be going for headshots. You need to be using your knife as a defensive tool rather than an offensive tool. But the rhythms are very similar in terms of like crowd control, resource management, spacing. I don't think there's been like a more fun third-person shooting game ever made. Like the fact that this was the thing that popularized the over-the-shoulder camera thing, but no one's got it better, is insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's games that are like mechanically tighter, like you got the Gears of Wars and Uncharted and Vanquish and all these games that have done really good things, but nobody's touched that first village encounter for me in any of these other games. The storyline and all is so cheesy and ridiculous, and it really works. All of Leon's lines, that's diminished a bit in the remake, but the remake has a lot more atmospheric sections and details, like use of lighting is very good, and the way they adapted a lot of the sections was fantastic as well. They add resource management additions as well with the you can do crafting and stuff like that, which really I enjoyed actually. And like even stuff like balancing all your items in your case and like organizing that was really you like what this game nails is you have these super intense, difficult sections where you're overwhelmed, too many enemies, you're running out of bullets, and when you get through those and you've no bullets left, going around and collecting all the pickups and opening all the chests in an area afterwards is so satisfying. And then B, taking a minute to organize your inventory is so therapeutic.
I have to say, it's probably like my favorite inventory management in a game. It's just like just rotating the items and stuff. Yeah. I'm going to put that there. I
have my health corner and my bullets corner, and I love. And when things aren't that way, I don't like it, and I can't play the game. I need to sort this out before this boss fight. The original just squeaks by for me. There's something about the pace of play that works a lot better. I think I'd find it difficult to go back to it now and replay it. I'll leave it a few years because the remake is so smooth in the way things move, and it's a lot faster paced.
I'm glad you played the original first, though. Yeah,
yeah. It might have been difficult to go the other way, but I think the original just squeaks by, and there's something to do with the aesthetic as well. The modern one looks amazing, obviously, but there's something to be said about the sort of rough textured greys and beige and stuff like that. That's really effective.
This game kind of popularized that whole aesthetic, though. The whole like brown, like this was just before the PS3, so and the Xbox 360, and this is one of like the progenitors for it. And it has to be said, at the time, this was one of like the best looking games.
It's actually
ever.
Just so I've kind of forgot that this was PS2, and it looks
easy to forget.
Well, GameCube, I guess, as well, but it looks incredible on it.
Yeah, no, it still looks great. Like it's definitely one of those when they initially announced it. Some people were like, obviously RE2 remake was great and people loved that, but they're like, does this need a remake? Like you're going to make it play similarly, so why does it even need it? But it's aged incredibly well. I
love just it's coming up there now, the title drop.
Oh, it's
like,
brilliant.
Where's everyone going or whatever?
No, he says, are you all going to bingo or something like that? Yeah. They kept that line in the remake as well, which is great. Maybe one of the best openings for a game ever as well. Like just the way it lulls you in slowly. The guy turning around in front of the fire and attacking you in that room was amazing. I have some footage of the remake in here as well, just for comparison, the same section.
Actually, just on that, I definitely preferred that section in the original. The fireplace where he's turning around.
Yeah, I can see what they're wanting to do because they make it a little creepier, the whole beginning section in general.
And I guess for players that had played the original, they wanted to like change it up for them to like throw them off guard, I guess.
And there were some sections where I was like a little like, oh, what's this going to be? And they introduced some new enemy types as well, which were really good. Like the bullhead guy is new and like they change up certain sections for the better, I think, a lot of the time. They do more of those, like there's that section where Ashley has to, I don't think it's in the original, use a wrecking ball to break through a wall in the remake, which is a really good section. It's another one of those, you're going to have to survive in this room while you're getting swarmed type of, and I love those. They were so fun to play. They introduced stealth elements in the second in the remake, which are fine. Like I didn't really use them that much. I might just get to drop on one enemy at the beginning, and then it just like descends into the usual thing. One thing I'll mention is Ashley's sections. Like they play surprisingly well, especially in the remake, for being like something that people usually hate, which is an escort mission. But the way you can put her in a bin or control her and bring her around is just. It's just a really good use of another mechanic.
Yeah,
that's something they're really good. Is like they have the base mechanics which sort of don't change throughout the game. You're shooting guys, you'll get overwhelmed, go for their legs, etc. But then they just add other interesting level elements on it, like, oh, you're locked in a cage in the middle of the room and you are surrounded and you have to get out. Things like that, which are always so like I was constantly looking forward to what the next thing they would throw me. Part of me would be like, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm in a hedge maze with dogs and shit. But then part of me would be like, okay, this is sick. How do I deal with this? Okay, use my shotgun more or something like that. Yeah, amazing.
It's great that you have both of them on this video here to see the contrast between them.
Yeah, obviously the graphics are just like insane in the new one as well. Like the RE engine is no joke. But it's been a revelation. I get the hype was justified because this was like hyped beyond the moon before. Like Yi had told me to play it, and it's constantly in the list of the top 10 best games ever made. But
and it's probably still like the best Resident Evil there is, I'd say. I know it's like a little bit more shootery and stuff, I guess, than the earlier ones.
Definitely, yeah.
But it's still like, it's just incredible.
I think the thing that they lost as they went on, and they lose it completely with RE6, is resource management is still really important in this game. And you can get by without engaging in it too much because they have the adaptive difficulty, which is really well implemented. But you also do have to think about how you approach encounters, and it's not to the same level as something like Signalis, but it's still a really interesting mechanic within the game.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, completely blown away. Obviously, neither game is perfect. The first game probably suffers towards the end. The island isn't as good as the castle or the village section, and the remake sort of loses some of the camp elements of it that were really fun. But yeah, absolutely amazing, and I'm definitely going to replay these games.
Yeah, this is making me want to replay for the remake as well, because I think it was maybe this year or last year that I played that as well. It must have been this year, yeah. But yeah, I kind of like.
No, it was on your list last year.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah, it was last year. But I remember like going through it really quickly, so I wouldn't mind like going back and playing it again.
And there's Ada DLC now as well.
Yes, actually, that's on my list. But
separate ways.
Just waiting for a sale on it. But, yeah. Cool. I think we might have lost Steve.
Yeah, you did for a bit.
Oh, okay, cool. He's back.
I was basically saying Resident Evil 4 is good.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just to very quickly throw I think I've said before on these podcasts that Resident Evil 4 is famously one of the games that I didn't really get on board with, because I was always very much a fan of the more claustrophobic horror-focused games from the previous ones. And this very much deviates away from that, and it kind of started the trend of more action horror, which a lot of games kind of followed with, and I always kind of resented it a bit for that. I can appreciate how masterfully well made it is. It's just, it's not the kind of game that I'm usually. When I play horror, I want to be scared, and this is a game that keeps you tense, not scared. So, but it's still excellent, though. I agree with pretty much everything that I presume you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, the Evil Within, man. Get on that.
I don't know, but that's got jump scares, so I think I might try Alan Wake. I think that might be next.
Actually, forget what I said. Alan Wake, dude, play that, man. Sorry,
okay,
what were you going to say, Steve?
No, I didn't really. I think that's all of the games that we were going to go through, wasn't it?
Yes.
Anything else we want to talk about?
My bladder really wants to talk to the toilet right now. So I think that.
All right. Well, listen. We'll wrap it up then a little bit, but should we talk a little bit about future plans?
Yes. So, like we mentioned, we have a lot of me and Steve chatting about Final Fantasy Rebirth coming very soon. So we'll be uploading those in the next few weeks. Every few weeks to be a new episode. We got 4 episodes of that, and in other Final Fantasy related podcast stuff, we have a new series that'll be coming out in the new year called Forced Final Fantasy, where we force Sean to play through the original PS1 Final Fantasy VII. Sean doesn't.
It's going to be a long-running series.
It is very long. I don't know where. I think we just got to Walmart. Sean doesn't like JRPG. Never played JRPGs. Generally doesn't play never played a Final Fantasy before. So it's very interesting hearing his thoughts. And Steve, we have another series as well.
We have one more kind of a big project now that it might be over quite a long time now. But basically, we're looking at the evolution of certain aspects of games, and we're probably going to go do different things like evolution of certain series, evolution of certain aspects of games, etc., etc. Now we're looking at the evolution of 3D platformer.
Sorry, Steve. Yeah, you were just breaking up a lot there. Maybe just start that again.
All right. Sorry. Just for anyone listening, I apologize if that was completely garbled. Basically, we're doing a series now on the evolution of the 3D platformer. We're going to look at like significant titles in the genre and just see how they've improved over
time, I think.
No, I think you meant over a hill.
Over a hill?
Over a hill. How they've improved over a hill. So if you put Crash Bandicoot over a hill, how would that go?
How much better would it get?
And that's we've based a podcast series around that. But basically what Steve was saying, we're looking at 3D platformers from the originals of the genre, sort of sequentially right through. So we're looking at games like Super Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot, and going through and just sort of charting the progression of the genre and how it's changed. So right back from really like the fundamental starts where like it's just a block jumping up and down to eventually we'll get to stuff like, I guess, Astrobot. Towards the end of the series,
eventually,
who knows when that'll be?
But it's also like, it's a series, I guess, that we want to like. We're doing 3D platformers now. We might move on to like a different genre of game after that.
Yeah, exactly. If you hated me, you do survival horror. But I guess it's weird. I've got three survival horror games in my top games of the year. So something must be different.
Yeah, that's surprising actually, but I'm delighted you're getting into the genre, man, because there's just
sort of the best games a lot of the time. Really, they're really good.
There's just like, and there's just a wealth of games out there that you haven't tried. But I'm really looking forward to you playing Alan Wake 2 because it's one of the best survival horror games in the last while. I think after Signalis, maybe.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess there's been an RE2 and 4 remake as well, but it stands up there with the best of them. Yeah.
Sick. Steve, have we got you back?
Oh, yeah, I'm back here now.
Back.
Sorry about that.
I basically just
we finished what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole
good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for listening in, joining us on this seamless live podcast experience with no technical difficulties whatsoever.
It wasn't bad though for the first ever one, you know. And if you like this format, please let us know in the comments.
Yeah, we'll be back with more and more videos coming soon as well.
Yeah, definitely. And for anybody, I mean, obviously, this is going to stay up on YouTube, and we'll also be uploading it to wherever you get your podcasts as well over the next week or so. So yeah, that's it from me. And
arrivederci.
Steve gone?
Keep it saucy.
There he is.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. Good luck.
Bye-bye.